up, Randies? You know, that last video got a little out of control, so this one will be a little shorter on words, but I'm sure just as decisive in the comments section. Either way, the Pokémon films are generally much better than weekly helpings of the TV show, but not all of them have stood the test of time. In fact, some of them just plain sucked from the get-go. This will absolutely be a controversial list, so if you have a weak stomach, then now's your chance to use an escape rope. Here's our list for the top 5 worst Pokémon films of all time. I'm going to hear about this one for years to come, but bear in mind, I'm not just hating for the sake of hating. There's one specific reason this film makes a list such as this, and that fully falls on the shoulders of 4Kids and Warner Brothers. The superior Japanese release was Frankensteined beyond recognition, but the worst culprit in all of these unnecessary edits is obviously the omission of what we now call the uncut story of Mewtwo's origin, aka Amber's story. Now, I'm aware that the original theatrical cut of the film in Japan also didn't have this short attached. However, that was immediately rectified, starting with all subsequent airings of the program once it became available on VHS and DVD. My issue is that the North American dub actually uses footage from this short in our theatrical cut, as it was a higher quality, while still pretending that the emotional short doesn't exist. It's just a beautiful extra that goes a long way in justifying Mewtwo's disdain for humanity, and it 100% makes some of this movie's sins more forgivable. You couple this with the hypocritical fighting is wrong message and unforgivable Pokémon Tears Deus Ex Machina ending, and I just can't give this one a pass. Even if Mewtwo is one of the most fleshed out characters in all of Pokémon, even if Mew is adorable and the film has a creepy H.R. Geiger atmosphere that I love, I still think this film fails more than it succeeds. But hey, it's still not the worst Pokémon film. From the first generation, right into the most recent, Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction doesn't necessarily fail because it's a bad film, but because it's incredibly generic. Diancie is the spoiled princess with the heart of gold cliche I've become sick of growing up during the Disney Renaissance, and even with how brutal and destructive Yveltal is presented in this movie, it somehow still manages to feel like an extra long episode of the anime show. There's also a ton of thieves who are after Diancie, but there's no real character motivation or backstory given. They're just antagonists who want diamonds. I'll admit, these adversaries actually have pretty cool designs. I especially enjoy Riot's ninja theme and how it complements Greninja. I just wish more was given for these characters to do. I mean, they don't really even impede Diancie's quest. They're just sort of a nuisance and could have easily had their roles filled by Team Rocket. Because of its wasted opportunities and a boring cliched plotline, Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction just isn't worth the watch. You'd honestly just be better off watching Pokémon Heroes for a second time. How can this movie be so bad when the other two in this trilogy are two of the best in a 20-year-old series? Well, as I pondered that honest question, let's take a look at why this film just doesn't hold up. I mean, the reverse world is pretty damn cool, and Giratina has everything I could ask for from a legendary Pokemon, yet this one still manages to fall short. One of the main issues I have with this one is Shaymin itself. Yes, it's annoying, and no, I don't understand why a non-psychic Pokemon can use telepathy, but hey, that's a Pokemon movie and I've learned I can't get too upset over it. I guess what sort of throws me off is its attitude. It sort of acts like a proto-Keldeo, as it just wants to prove itself and often acts reckless, but the difference is, Shaymin, of all the mythical Pokemon, may be the most unconvincing as a rebel. I don't know, maybe I'm overreacting, but heck, even Zero completely dismissed it when he caught it on video surveillance. To me, that says something. Besides that though, there's disappointing stuff like Regigigas's out-of-nowhere appearance and some of Ash's stupider moments, which is saying something. But overall, I also absolutely can't stand this movie's villain. Zero just makes no sense. He really wants to control the reverse world because he's sick of people polluting it. Also, he's a brilliant but unstable assistant looking for revenge. But how? And really, why? I know I can't expect much from the villains of a Pokémon film, but come on guys, Zero may be one of the most unexplored of the entire film franchise. This is by far the most forgettable of all 17 films thus far, and that, plus some utterly stupid character motivations, is why I believe it's the third worst. Now, those last three all had their problems, but also had a few saving graces. These next two, though, are the only ones from the series that I genuinely despise. Genesect and the Legend Awakened is a film that does everything in its power to contradict one of the series' best characters, and I really don't understand why. The Genesect have a good reason for doing what they do, and in all fairness, they are better villains than Zero, but still, they're underwhelming, and beyond the potential for event Pokemon distributions, I really don't get why the leader is shiny. In fact, Genesect really shouldn't even have a shiny form because they're a man-made Pokemon. I mean, you think after tampering with a creature's DNA and moveset and memories, they're just gonna stop at food coloring a shell? Overall, I think this story had the potential for a ton of promise, even further paralleling Mewtwo's backstory with Team Rocket. But sadly, it's all relegated to backstory. I mean, I think Mewtwo, a Pokemon with 2 movies already of backstory, gets more devoted flashbacks than our bug-eyed villains. And then there's Mewtwo. Mewtwo. What have they done to you? It's very clear that somehow this Mewtwo is not meant to be the same one from the other 2 films because the backstories just don't add up. And yet, somehow Ash just knows Mewtwo. And so does Iris. And Silent. Okay, so what? Is Mewtwo essentially just a friggin' Goldeen in this world? How do 2 characters who should have no idea who, or even what a Mewtwo is, just accept it like it's just another Saturday in Central Park? Also, shifting gears a bit, why don't we learn any more about Mewtwo's Mega Evolution in the movie, and how can it even Mega Evolve without a strong bond with a trainer? The simple fact is, this is a movie that was designed to sell toys and get kids hyped for Mega Evolution, but in doing so, leaves so many unanswered questions that it can't possibly be canon even if it tries. And for all of that, and ruining one of my favorite characters' backstories, this movie deserves its spot on this list. Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea is a fancy ad for a spin-off video game series. That's all it is, and I'm sorry if some of you grew up with this one. Even if I don't understand how anyone could like this pile of trash, I know there are those who do, and I sincerely don't want to offend anyone who enjoys it. I can't take those feelings or memories away from you, nor would I ever try, so please, let me explain this one, and why I believe it's the worst that the Pokemon movies have to offer. First off, Manaphy is annoying. I mean more annoying than Keldeo, more annoying than Diancie or Shaman, even more annoying than Jirachi, and in fact, beat for beat, this movie is almost an identical ripoff of the Jirachi one, including the circus stuff, and they both take place in the same generation. All Manaphy does in this film is whine and scream mama and just sort of stay helpless while admiring May. And speaking of May, why have both May and Max of all people gotten Pokemon movies when Brock has been in like 10 and never once been the pseudo-protagonist? Also, despite being May's time to shine, once again it's Ash who saves the day in this one, which is made even worse by the fact that May is basically left helpless. Great message there, Pokemon. But guys, I'm only scratching the surface on this one. With one of the longest running times amongst all the movies, it's long, boring, features Kyogre in an obvious trailer-baiting cameo role, and has a very typical Pokemon villain as the antagonist. But the worst is by far the ending, where Ash saves the day, but instead of being saved by a Pokemon's ability, or Jackie, or something unrealistic but believable in this specific world, he's saved by a beam of light derived from a magic sea crown that allows him to fight Phantom on his jet ski. And this is like at least a 5-minute sequence of Ash just being light and basically skating across the ocean surface. Oh, hi Kyogre. I could go on and on about this one, but for the sake of time and my sanity, I'm done, guys. I watched 17 Pokémon films, and this was the one that by far stood out as the worst. And if you disagree, that's totally cool. I get it. Different generations for different people. But personally, I'd rather watch Jirachi scream "Candy" 1,000 times before hearing Manaphy cry "Mama" one more. Well, that's all for today, guys. I hope between both lists, I didn't upset too many people. Let me know what your least favorite Pokemon films are in the comments section below. And for a list of the best, click that left-hand box. I'll see you next week with a brand new The Rarest, so stay tuned for that, and as I always say, happy hunting, baby rhinos.